Alright, hi everyone, how are we all today? It's been a while. It's been a long while. I think the last time we did a live stream was the September Q&A, which I haven't done a thumbnail for yet, funny enough. But here we are. So, for those who are new to this channel, which is quite a few of us, we do a series called Form Checks, where we look at videos submitted by you, the viewer, and examine your archery technique and give feedback. Normally I do this fairly irregularly, depending on how many people submit videos. I normally wait until I get around 3 or 4 videos to do in a sequence. I now have 3 or 4 videos. It's taken about 3 months or something. So I think these first few segments have been submitted back in July or August. It's been quite a while. But it's been a fairly busy time. Schoolwork, or work rather. The spring season's come up and I'm shooting a bit more regularly. And on my side, I've had gout. And gout sucks. It really does. Thankfully, I've seen the doctor and I've got the right medication and I can finally walk again, which is great. I'll be seeing how my foot lasts tomorrow when we do our first our round. So we've been doing a few things there. So hello to our audience. We've got Youngzi, Sammy, hello again. Zip, nice to see you again. Sorry for the last weekend. Yeah, gut really does suck. But I should be back in action very soon. In other news, I was meant to attend a charity shoot today, but gout. That's basically the story of my life right now. So, if you know what gout is, just Google it. It's agonizing. It's the old man's disease, or it's the rich man's disease. And considering I don't drink or eat like organ meat, it's strange that I'm getting it, but it runs in the family. So, that's my situation right now. Hello, Xander. Thank you for joining us. The other thing that's been kind of interrupting my archery schedule, apart from gout, is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Oh my goodness, that's basically all my spare time is playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. See, this is why I don't do videos on a set schedule, because I want to do other things, and that's been the thing that's been distracting me the most. I will be doing a video, an archery pop shots video on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but it's a beautiful game. Even if you're not an Assassin's Creed fan, the game and the series has taken a direction which is really bright and colourful, adventurous, and I'm really enjoying the game. It really is an Odyssey. But this isn't meant to be a rant about Odyssey or how good it is or how why people don't like it. This is our live form checks. So we'll give people some time to get into chat, and of course this will be available on YouTube as a VOD. As it is a YouTube stream. So we've got 4 different videos submitted. So there are a few things to talk about. Sammy has a quick point in chat there. So you tried the low draw. You posted on my Facebook page. Oh yes, the low draw. Oh my goodness, yeah. Let me demonstrate something. So let me just chuck my headphones down. That's the Odyssey set. So for those who are just wondering what's happening, so in one of the previous Q&As, we were talking about the low draw versus high draw, and we'll get to this a bit later. The point that we were making, oh my goodness, I don't have a bow here, how about that? I've got a 50-pound bow. I don't want to destroy this on my shoulders, rather. So the point that was being made with the low draw was that in most archery technique, we're taught to draw somewhat high, not a sky draw, but a high draw. So you want to generally have your shoulder low. You start fairly high, kind of eye level. When you pull back, you settle down, so the weight doesn't go through your shoulders here. Ouch, man. Doing demonstrations on a 50-pound bow is not cool, but that's the only bow I have here right now. So the discussion we had before was the issue of having the shoulder too low, so you draw from the ground up basically. And the issue with that, which a lot of people struggle with, is that you end up pushing the tension line through your arm upwards. It goes up through your shoulder, and your rotator cuff becomes well, it's under a lot of pressure. And this is the cause of a lot of archery injuries. Many people who do archery without training will tend to damage this part because of the low draw. So with Sammy's point of view, yeah, it can be murder on the shoulder. Now, can it be done? Yes. In fact, historically, the low draw was the correct way to draw the bow. But understand that the historical drawing methods are different to modern methods. An example of this is if you look at English archery. In English archery, during the medieval times and going towards the Victorian era, the writers of stuff like Horace Ford and other texts from the 1600s to the 1800s will discuss the low draw as the correct way. Now, the high draw, which is what we now see, is apparently more useful for target shooting, with the low draw. The high draw is more useful for flight shooting. So long distance shooting, the low draw was traditionally seen as the correct way to do target shooting because it brings the thing on target. But also understand that the low draw technique also concerns the push-pull. So traditionally, you wouldn't just pull it back. You would actually push outwards and pull back at the same time. In modern times, we call it the push-pull technique. It's actually a very old method of doing archery. So that's where it comes from. The low draw was traditionally a target shooting technique. Now, keeping that in mind, remember that medieval archers, especially the heavy, most archers in medieval times, had deformed shoulders. And in fact, if you look at some of the historical records and findings, they could discover which skeletons belong to archers based on the bone deformity. So if you keep that in mind, the techniques which were traditionally used aren't necessarily the best techniques. They were done because they were necessary, but they're not necessarily the best techniques. So yeah, the low draw, it literally is murder on the shoulder. Like, it will destroy and deform your shoulder if you do it consistently over a long period of time. That's why we generally don't recommend this sort of thing. So, interesting that, Sammy, you verified that. Yeah, if you do it with a modern bow, it's painful. So, that's why we don't teach it. It can be done, but it's a sort of thing where you're sacrificing your shoulder to do a kind of shot, which in many ways isn't really worth it. Anyway, so quick point in chat. Hello to Chiku, welcome back. Brecht, I keep mentioning this already, Brecht. I've reviewed the Mandarin Duck Phantom. I've said so on the video that it has the right bushings for the sight and the stabilizer. So technically, you can use it in Olympic style shooting. That is, you can screw on a stabilizer and you can screw on sights. So you can do that. That's what it says on the package. That's what I said in my video. So I appreciate if you don't spam my videos with the same question, because I've already answered that. So there you go. Alright, other quick questions. Yes, Sammy. Yeah. So the low draw, it's intended with push pull. So the problem again with that with modern archers, we don't learn push pull. We learn that it's just a straight draw technique. So if you start low and you draw straight back, that is gonna murder your shoulders. Push pull is more like we said before. You need to kind of you need to push a bow forward and pull back. That's more of the traditional longbow English style, and perhaps what a lot of the medieval archers, especially in Europe, would have done at that time. Yeah. Oh, is it interesting? Yeah. So a version of the low draw is currently the official method of archery Finland. That's interesting. Yeah. I've seen of quite a few archers do a low draw and come up like that, but there is a particular method to it. It's not something that you can probably acquire naturally. It has to be taught correctly. Otherwise, yes, it will murder your shoulders. So with that said, let's see our first video for our set today. So we've got this one from Rafa. This is from July or the start of August. I'm not sure how much this is relevant now. One of the tough things with doing form checks is that, again, I do wait for people to submit videos, and sometimes the information can be outdated, especially for learners, because you will progress very quickly over your first few months. So a lot of this might already be outdated. Nonetheless, we'll do our job. We'll do our favor to Rafa, and we'll have a look at his shooting. So as you can see, he's using a Junsing recurve bow. That's the I think the F155, whatever the number it was. So let's see how Rafa handles this. Now the word notes, unfortunately, I was not paying attention. I haven't read it because it's been too long. But let's see how this goes. I think the volume should be fine. Let's have a look at how this goes. I believe Rafa's only been shooting for a couple of months. So we'll watch the sequence first. And those are very big veins. In case you're wondering, the veins work fine no matter what you do, right? The reason why I point the veins out is the large, I believe it's a feather, it might be plastic veins actually, but these large profile veins tend to be very good for short distance. And for those who are wondering how this works historically, actually, this is a good point to diverge on. Let's flip back to me for a moment here. So the interesting thing with the big veins, and people ask, should I be using feathers or big veins or small veins? The purpose of the veins is to correct flight, because the arrow will kind of spin around and go sideways, up and down, and that can be of various factors. Tuning is one thing, but also release. So the feathers or the veins or the fletchings are there to correct problems in your flight. The cleaner the shot and the better the tune, the less the arrow has to correct, therefore it should be more accurate. So the thing to consider is that a large vein will mean that it will correct sooner, but the larger surface area will have more drag. So it will affect the long distance performance. In contrast, a small profile vein will have, it will take longer to correct, but it will have less drag. Now, that said, if you're shooting long distances, small profile veins are preferred, and historically, archers use small feathers for long distance arrows, whereas short distance arrows had larger feathers, or in some cases, no feathers. You could shoot a very heavy arrow with no fletchings, and therefore it would have a lot more penetration, but a lot more inaccuracy. That was actually recorded in the ancient Greek sources. So yeah, the large veins are fine for short distance shooting. Anyway, we sidetracked there. Let's go back to our video, watching Rafa again. What he's doing. It's interesting that he's shooting this bare bow, because he does have the sight block mounted. So he does have a sight, but he's shooting in bare bow, just for practice, which is completely fine. So this is the sight block. This doesn't come with the bow. You have to buy this as a separate sight. I believe this would have been a package. I think you mentioned before, this is the AliExpress arrow. That's the case. That wouldn't be surprising to see this as a package. He's pretty happy himself there. Actually, that sounded really nice. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the form, but the sound of that was really nice. Yeah, this is pretty satisfying, honestly. Like, I'm not sure how far it is, but the thunk of the bow and the arrow actually sounds really good. Alright, we've seen a pretty nice sequence there. So let's go back to the beginning, because thankfully he's organised two angles. So there's a front view and there's a back view. So let's pick out what he's doing. Whoops. Alright, so it's a fairly straight draw. So we'll do the basic check first. Well, his stance looks okay. The legs are fairly comfortably apart. The anchor point looks okay under jaw. Now, one thing I would generally recommend for anyone watching this is to put your head down. The thing with archers, and this is what I recommend, especially for anyone new. I made a video a few weeks ago called the aggressive shot mindset, and the purpose of this is to remind archers to be a little more aggressive in executing the shot, because many of the problems in especially learners is that we're too timid when we get to our full draw. So the result of that is, as Morton's been identifying them, there are several patterns that happen. One is our head tilts up, so we're anchoring here, but the head goes up. So looking towards the target, the head goes up there. We also tend to lean back a bit, and the shoulder pops up. So all these things are kind of the symptoms of someone who is a little meek or weak on the shot. So again, we'll demonstrate with the 50-pound bow. So people tend to go lean back, and then so I'm not going to do a full draw with 50-pound bow. That's crazy. So what I would recommend, therefore, is to put your head down. Okay. So first things first, think aggressively. So lean forward a bit, drop your front shoulder, and put your head down. You can draw down and then put your head down and get it in there, but really put your head down. So if you look at the video, one of the things we'll see here, which is very clear, a couple of things. You can see that front shoulder coming up. All right, we're shooting a short distance, so this tends to happen a short distance. But there seems to be a bit of a slight lean backwards. So if we draw a straight line through the center of his body, it's not perfectly straight. So there's a slight lean back. The shoulder is popping up slightly. So you can see the tension line. We've got a full grip on the bow. The tension line goes through the arm, and it's not straight through the bone on bone. So this is going to push that rotator cuff there. That's the part where archers are most prone to injury if they don't do things correctly. So that's why I recommend by lean forward a bit, drop the front shoulder down, and in some ways you lift this bow up, but it's mostly dropping the shoulder. Putting the head down will also get you that alignment more consistently. So at the moment his head's leaning backwards, he'd probably want to tilt his head forward. So tuck the chin in, and therefore you have a much more aggressive pose. You will still get your string on the nose as you normally would, and the ankle pulls to be correct. So if we apply that ourselves, I'll just remove the headphones. I can't anchor the headphones. So it will look like, instead of looking like this, you can get a very tight anchor like this. That's completely fine. But I would generally recommend people actually tilt down. So you actually go in under, you just look at the anchor point, but you put your chin down. Look at that way. So look at the form. So this is what I think Rafa's doing right now. So kind of looking upwards. So nose up, nose down. And this is more that picture perfect form, which you'll see most archers do demonstrate well. Down, anchor, and that's your shot there. So that's what I would generally recommend first. So in terms of your basic form, that's where I would probably say needs to be looked at. It's a bit too much of a lean back. Now in terms of the shot execution, I just know we'll go to the next shot. One of the things that we said in chat was no back tension. That's harsh. I don't like saying no back tension, because a lot of people do have some back tension. So watching this is what the second angle is really useful here. So what I want to see here is when Rafa releases the shot, there is a somewhat lack of back tension. So when he releases, there's not much squeezing of the back muscles. So the release happens at the hand, so the fingers are activating release. So what you get is a very compact release. That's nothing wrong with the compact follow through, but if you see the way the shot executed from start to finish, the back is the shoulder blade comes together there, but at this point there should be a continual contraction of the shoulder muscles and expansion in the chest area. We don't really see that in the shot process. So this is a typical beginner bare bow kind of thing where you are practicing your basic form, you align the arrow on target, and therefore you execute the shot by letting it go. But the way you should be thinking about this is not so much letting it go in that sense, but squeezing it through. That's the mental process you want to go through, is to squeeze it through. The power is in the back. So that was a much better shot there. Okay, so if we look at this shot, we'll see that there is more rotation of the arm, and this snaps together more closely. There, see? That motion there shows back tension. See? So there's more of an authentic follow through. I'm watching the bottom left corner. Watch the top image now. You can see that's a much more authentic follow through. I missed that, sorry. Bang. So that's a much more authentic follow through. Now watch it again, because this I think was a nice sweet shot. Yeah, that's a much better snap of the shoulder blades. So he can do it. So we're trying to build this consistently. As I said before, that the posture needs to be looked at as well. So a bit more of a lean forward would be good here. Try to get them drop the front shoulder, because that's going to hurt. Especially in the higher draw weight. That level of... it's going to put a lot of strain in the front shoulders. You need to lean forward here. So you see how it pops up there? You need to drop down. But let's see this shot. So if this is a good shot, the shoulder blade should come in, and the follow-through hand should come up quite authentically. That one, not so much. Wasn't bad, but could do with a bit more of a squeeze. It's really hard to do without a clicker. That's a modern thing. That was a little limp. And each of these inconsistencies will lead to a slightly different velocity and also a different release technique. So the direction of shot will be slightly different because you're not following the line of the arrow. So I've got the front view now, which is great. So again, see from this angle, you can probably get his head down a little more. And actually from this angle, you can really see the lack of back tension. So what I mean is, with strong back tension, it's bare bows, it's a fairly light riser, that's fair enough. But back tension will also keep the bow steady as well. So that one was not bad. Okay, that was alright one. What I mean by authentic follow through is with proper back tension, there should be an opening up feeling. That one was a little less controlled. Yeah, that's fine. It's only close distance. That's fine. Yeah. So what we want is authentic follow through and strong back tension. There were a couple of shots in one of the middle sets where I think Rafa really had this. So that was my favorite shot. I think that was the one. That motion there was the motion you might see. The shoulders squeeze together. This one snaps back. That was good execution there. So that one was the sweet spot, if you can remember what that was. Whereas the first few, and most of the other ones, were a little limp on the back tension. And at close distance, you can't really diagnose this because you're shooting at a very small target close distance. So you don't see your errors being amplified enough. So lining it up and letting it go will get you in the right place most of the time. That said, this one, as you can see, it was a little limp. And that's probably the feedback we'll give to Rafa. It's mostly that a lot of these shots are fairly good, but they would probably reflect a greater need for back tension. What does chat think? We'll go through some of the questions while we're doing that, but what does chat think so far? Brecht, which bow do you recommend as your first bow that you're going to use your club? Whatever bow you can afford, and what kind of bow you want to shoot. I have no recommendation. Most bows are fairly good, and I'll say this a lot in my videos. I have no favorite bows. Most bows do the job right. Fatwa, what draw length does the archery athlete use? Draw length is not a choice. Now, for compound, draw length isn't a choice. Draw length is a matter of how long your arms are. So you don't choose how long you draw. You draw to your full point, but how tall you are and how long your arms are will dictate your draw length. You don't choose draw length. I believe it's a 30-pound bow. Let me double check the actually, I can't be bothered checking the email. I've closed it. No, I'm not gonna bother. No, I've closed the email. It's about a 30-pound bow, I think. I can't remember what it was in the chat there. Mel, I missed the question. Is the and anchor point important used as I'm not sure what you mean there. Is the and anchor point important? I think you're missing a letter somewhere. Let's see. I want to sidetrack a bit here. So there's a lot of feedback. This is for you, Morton, especially. Okay. So the thing to watch out for, especially as a coach, is that we have to convey information in a way which makes sense. Okay. So this specific diagnostics of shot technique, things like you say, for example, the elbow dropping indicates trapeze activation of the shot. For layman, what the hell does that mean? Okay, I understand what you mean, but when we communicate to somebody else, we have to be very mindful of using the right language and approach. So this is a technically correct analysis, but I don't like flooding people with basically techno babble. So it's the coach's prerogative. I'm gonna be very mindful of this because a lot of people just don't get it. It's why I do what I do, on my side. But yeah, no, it's correct. But just yeah. Mail again. How long does the archer practice for the competition? This is a vague one. Depends on the archer, depends on what they want to achieve, depends on their level of training. If you're like a Korean pro shooter, you do like 1,000 hours a day. If you're a casual shooter or you're a casual competitor, it might be 1,000 hours a week. If you're a completely recreational shooter, it might be 1,000 hours a month. So it depends on your own schedule, how serious you take it. So there is no correct answer. But if you're a top level Korean, you're probably like 1,000 hours a day, plus weight training and so on. So it's a lot of intense training, but not everyone does that. Alright, let's go to our second video. Thanks to Rafa for that submission. The next one comes from, I've completely forgotten. I closed the email. Let's grab the name first before I switch over to Windows. Okay. Alright, this one comes from Roland. Roland from Hungary. Very good. Let's have a look at Roland. Now, he's using a horse bow. One of the favorite things of this series is we see different styles of shooting. So let's see how Roland shoots with the horse bow. Now, I'm not an expert on horse bows and traditional techniques, so I'm not confident in this, but let's see how he shoots and enjoy our demonstrations. Oh, fantastic. There we go. Love the bow. So you're shooting a horse bow with 3 fingers. That's completely fine. Okay. I'll always preface my traditional technique critiques with an asterisk because I'm not that fully confident in most of my things. We'll watch this again and we'll try to observe a few things. We've got a very wide stance here. Now, this isn't target shooting, so you don't need the target shooting stance, but this is an unusually wide stance. Perhaps more of a horse riding stance, I guess. Some people pointed out it's a bit too wide. If you're training for this reason, sure, but if there's no reason to do this, then I wouldn't recommend doing this. But that's something to watch out for. This is like a decent draw weight. You can't quite pull it back all the way. The short burst will, I guess, stack, you might call it, but it will feel quite tough to plug all the way. It's a fairly short draw. Nothing wrong with this with a short draw, but we come quite short. It's not even the conventional like call the mouth draw, which a lot of the modern shooters use. So this is a fairly short draw for a horse bow. I mean, these ones are designed to be drawn to the ear or to the bottom of the jaw. So if you're trying to experiment, you can do a longer draw. This is a little short. I know this is a consistent point though, so as long as you're drawing to a consistent point, I'm not sure where you're anchoring your face though. If you might be using your middle finger and your lips or your pinky finger or something. It looks like a pretty light anchor point. Okay, I can't see from this perspective necessarily, but the anchor point seems a little loose. So you're drawing to your cheek, I guess. So it's consistent enough. So that seems okay. I think this is a pretty fun thing to look at. And it works for the most part, but if you're trying to be more precise, you might want to have a bit of consistency if you draw. So you're either drawing longer or anchoring a particular point there. I think you're touching something, so I'm not gonna say you're doing it wrong. And for the most part, this is a strong frame. I mean, like, this is a good line of tension there. Shoulders are nicely positioned. Arm is nicely positioned. This is generally good form, upper body wise. This is actually really nice. So this is working fine. If this works for you for using it for, then I wouldn't change this. Others will use it based on which style they use. Now there is probably one thing I might highlight. It's the grip here. Again, a preface, I'm not an expert on traditional shooting, but one of the patterns with the horse bow and traditional archery styles is that the grip is actually quite different to a modern grip. Now, what you've got here is a very loose grip, and that generally is a good thing for modern archery. With traditional techniques, there's a lot more emphasis on the strength of the grip, because a lot of the power of the shot comes from the bow hand, not just the drawing hand. I don't know if this is the style you're using that works, but I think many people would actually recommend you close the hand for this style of archery and then have a stronger grip, because a loose grip is actually more detrimental with this style of archery. For the most part, again, I'm not the expert here on traditional archery, but I know a lot of like Western style archers will transfer over to Eastern style and shoot with the open hand or loose grip. You actually want a strong grip for the most part. So nice shooting too, by the way. This is actually really nice to watch. So basically, this is a strong frame. I like the setup here. It's a strong shot. You should feel good about this because it's very satisfying to get that physicality in your shot process. So this is a nice setup. I feel perhaps the hand should be close around the grip for the style of shooting, but like I said, I'm not the expert. I might close my stance a bit, like put the feet together, depending on whether you're doing horse style archery or foot style archery. But otherwise, this is a pretty strong and smooth process. So this is nice. It's got some good stuff happening here. The release, let's have a look at that one. That one dropped a little low. Quite a few trad shooters do this. That's probably the one thing I'd probably kind of click on. So the release is quite erratic. That's the one thing that's probably the most worrying here. So each time you shoot, you release slightly differently. So that comes up high. It's a slight pluck there. So because you're shooting with the Mediterranean style, even with the traditional methods, I would still expect the hand to come behind the ear. So if you have a clean straight release, it will come clean behind the ear. Whereas some of the shots, that one comes outwards away from the face. I think this one drops down low. So that was the next one that drops low. That was a little loosened. That was a nice relaxed one. I think this one dropped a little low. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, each release is different. Now, that's probably the one that causes the most frustration in the shot process, is that you're letting go a little too consciously. So you're not activating your shot process with the feeling, the tension, but you're using your hand to activate the shot. So some shots will come clean, some shots will fly slightly off, and that's because you're releasing the string at a slightly different angle each time. You can see this through the follow through. So each one is slightly different. Some will be very good shots, but this one, for example, is going to be a little limp because it comes down. There we go. So that's a little different there. Still a clean shot, but the probably something you want to watch out for is, again, people who shoot very well will have a very, very consistent follow through because you're doing the same thing each time. Whereas those variations can cause problems on target. There we go. So that's our second video. All right. What does chat think? Yeah, Sammy, for those kind of bows, many shoot on the right side for a right-handed archer with thumb draw. Doesn't mean you have to shoot for thumb draw. And these bows are ambidextrous. There's no right or left hand for these bows. So yeah, they usually shot with thumb draw, but not always. And the fact that not every horse bow style shoots from the left side, from the right side. You know, many of the sources that we look at, like the Scythian archers, the ancient Greek archers, or the mountain ones, the sources show equally left and right side, with both thumb draw, pinch draw, some kind of tertiary draw, and some kind of Mediterranean draw. So, it's likely that many of these archers, including the Huns in many cases, could have and might have used both techniques. It's a matter of personal preference. So there wasn't one correct technique. So normally these would be shot on with the thumb, but not always. But in any case, he's using a Mediterranean style with a horse bow. So that's more of that, of is he executing a clean shot rather than is he doing the correct technique for his style. Male, what pound do archers use at 70 meters? Again, it depends on the level of archer. So you can use a 30-pound bow and shoot 70 meters. Now, most of the female archers at pro level use a mid 40-pound bow, so 40 to 45. Men will be around 45 to 50, and some might be slightly higher. I think one of the Italian archers uses like a 55-pound bow or something, so he's the exceptional one, but most people shoot around 50s. But it depends on your personal practice routine, your personal strength, and so on. There's no set poundage for 70 meters. All right. A good back quiver. I don't recommend back quivers, but you know, I used a few which I liked. Most of them are the same to me, but depends on what you've seen in a back quiver. All right, next one comes from Mad Sean. I know Mad Sean watches a lot of these. I'm surprised he's not here right now, because he normally watches these live streams, but now that it's being featured, he's not here. So let's see Mad Sean. Or Sean, I should say. This is an Irish one. Yep, from Ireland. Let's see Sean have a shot. So it's got the sight, no stabilizers for now. Let's see how he goes. Okay. That wasn't too bad. So I do have a clicker, I believe. You can hear the clicker for the shot. Alright, I'll watch this again. This is a bit more technical. That one was looking alright there. I'm not saying much. I'm just trying to figure out. There's something not quite right. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, it's a good shot. Something feels a little off. Something feels a little off to me. Maybe it's a lack of a stabilizer, but this is something feels feel right to me. Oh, by the way, I should point out, this is when I'm putting your head down for the other people you can feedback to. So that's a better head position. I don't know, something feels quite a little weird here, right? It feels like the shoulder's coming up. That's what it feels like. So the stance, especially when you watch yourself from third person, you realize how far you're leaning back. You don't feel this when you're shooting. You feel like you're balanced, but you're actually leaning backwards. And I think this is what's throwing me off, is for a short distance, it's if you're shooting like 30, 40, 50 meters, that's probably more what I expect for your posture to look like. But for short distance, this is like what, less than 10 meters. That's a little kind of like out of line, because your center line is there, so there's definitely a lean back, and therefore you're dropping your rear shoulder, raising your front shoulder to get the line on the shot. That's what's throwing me off a bit there. So otherwise, the shot execution looks pretty clean. Just what it looks like is a bit of a slight. That one's okay. So you can see what we're watching out for is that gap between the arrow and the shoulder there. This one isn't as prominent, but if you look at the other one, I'm assuming you're shooting the same target, by the way. If not, this might be different. You can see that and that shot, the arrow goes below the shoulder when it's highlighted against the wall. So there's definitely an inconsistency. Now, I'm not sure what you're aiming at. This might be different if you're shooting at a multi-spot target. But for the sake of this, I mean, that's pretty clearly there's a gap there. Whereas this last shot, so that's not consistent. So we have that drop there. But ideally, this should be down. That's the pattern of most of the archers so far, is having that low shoulder. So this is a high shoulder. That was not too bad. But towards that last shot there, the shoulder does pop up. So do keep that in mind. So we're having a moving shot slightly. So we haven't consolidated, not stabilizing this shot. This is the one that's causing the most problems here. So we're having more movement in the shot execution. It's a fairly clean release. I think the release is very clean. The fact there's no stabilizer kind of throws me off because the bow spins backwards. But the front shoulder is what to watch out for. I don't know what to say about this. I think this is like 90% good as far as shots go. So there's no problems per se. It's just small things. And that's what normally your coach would point out. So but you're doing everything right. Release is clean. Clicker reaction is good. Yeah, slight lean backwards. Slight shoulder popping up. Release seems alright. Yeah. It's a pretty good process. So overall, sure, I'm doing pretty well there. Don't have too much negative to say. I think it's mostly in the right part. So doing a good job there. Oops, let me get my OBS right back up. Good. What do you think? Thanks, Turtle. Yeah, CVNSH or whatever. Yeah, I agree with the assessment. Yeah, I agree with the bow fingers. Not my main concern. The bow hand is a little extended. Sorry, wrong window. If we go back to the sequence, yeah, it's not the worst I've seen. It's very relaxed. It's not a claw in the same way. So some people, when they are holding the bow, you'll see like very extended fingers like this. They're trying very hard to keep it off the riser. Some have a claw, so it's still very tense. The most relaxed way is basically this. When you have no tension in your hand, it just drops down, and that's basically it. So that's what it should look like when you're holding it with the most relaxed grip. So there's no effort to do this. If you see something like this is bad, but this is pretty natural. Now this is kind of half-half. There's some tension, but it's not like it's a big problem. So in saying that, I don't think that's a bad grip necessarily, and it will acquire a good grip with practice and over time. The other thing we see normally is a spear grip, so people kind of hold it like this and kind of put the fingers out like that. So that's also not a good grip to use. But this one, it's okay. I wouldn't ping this as a coach at his level. Bow arm collapse. I think that's what's throwing me off is the bow arm collapse. I guess it's not prominent. I wouldn't ping as a problem. The arm just dropped very quickly though. That can be a problem. If that's what you mean, Morton. So the bow arm does drop very quickly, and that's probably what I recommend, and a lot of people do, is try to keep the arm up a bit more. Because the arm dropping that quickly can be a bad thing. But yeah, otherwise, looking pretty good, Sean. Happy with that. Alright, and our last one for today is something I can't actually help with, because this is from Vin. And Vin uses a compound bow. I don't do compound. And in watching this is the wrong angle for me to analyze, unfortunately. But the problem is that Vin's elbow, he has problems with the elbow. That's what I'm kind of struggling with here. So we'll watch the elbow, and we'll see how Vin does this, because I can't really help with compound that confidently. Let's watch this together. If you're a compound person, you're the expert, not me. But let's see what Vin does. By the way, I love the quiver. That is literally the box it came in. So the shot's a little fast. That's one thing. The shot is fast for a compound shooter. A lot of compound shooters take their time to align the target and get it right. The shot process is a little fast. So the alignment is there. So we see the effort to align. So we've got the full draw. Seems set correctly. Yeah, this is probably the hallmark of a novice compound shooter. The bow is good and all, but it's a little hasty. We're not really getting quite the right alignment here. And imagine the groupings here will be good for an archer, but not that good for a compound. Just based on the shot execution, the pace. So I'm not knowledgeable enough about compound bows and technique especially from this angle, to identify if there's anything on the anchor side which needs fixing here. For the most part, this looks alright though. It's a bit of a limp release, given that it's a wrist release. The back tension isn't really there, so it's prominent. So we should see a bit of a squeeze, but I think this is a bit, to me, this is a little hasty. I'm sensing there might be a bit of a trigger punch. That seems like a better shot there. So more of that alignment to the shoulders and a bit more control on the trigger. Okay, I can't comment too much on the shot process because, well, the process I can comment on, but I can't comment much on technique because it's the wrong angle for technique. But the problem that was identified was the elbow. Apparently there's a bit of pain in the elbow. I'm curious if we can identify something with this angle. It's a strong draw, I'll tell you that. I mean, the frame looks good. Bit of movement there. So once we stabilize that, this should look a lot better. That's a little too tense for a hand, I believe. Again, I'm not the compound guy, but that's a little too tense. You can see knuckles there. That's what I mean, but especially on a compound, that I feel is going to cause a lot of torque, because compounds have very narrow grips that tend to torque very easily. So you need a very relaxed grip for this one here. I think this is going to cause it pinches the grip and the rise between the fingers and knuckles, and that will cause a lot of left-right movement there. And that left-right there, it might be the grip. I feel that the follow through is a little forced. You don't have to follow through like that. Most archers don't. Most compound shooters don't do this, especially with short stabilizers. You don't have to like lean it forward, because that's kind of a fake follow through. When the shot's done, there's no reason to tilt it forward. A lot of top archers just keep the bow in their hands and it might kind of move it sideways, but they don't tilt it forward like that. The bow isn't that heavy. Anyway, elbow. We're looking at elbows. Now, quite a few compound shooters will have a slight bend in the arm. Not required. A lot of them shoot with a straight arm, but a lot of them shoot with a slightly bent arm. The issue here might be that it might be an overextended elbow. But this alone shouldn't cause pain in the elbow. A question, therefore, is the drawing too long? Because if you have to push the arm out that straight to get the right draw length, is it too long and uncomfortable? And could the excess follow through be contributing to the elbow strain? Because it's not a necessary follow through to do that. As you can see that movement. Because compound bows aren't light. I mean, the compound bow itself is quite hefty. Is that what's causing the elbow pain? This is extra movement at the end of each shot. So you're already pushing it outwards. So it's already under strain there. Does this extra motion really needed to be done? Yeah. I can't pinpoint the actual cause of the elbow pain. One, I'm the expert. Two, the angle doesn't quite work for me. I want to see the wrist technique as well. This is overall. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the shot. It's a bit hasty for a compound shooter. But what do we think, chat? I'm not the expert on this sort of thing. What do we think? More than some comments, of course. What are we looking at here? So high to low, lifting the ball. Yeah, back is hollow. Yeah, I'll agree with this one. That's a good point, Sammy. Look at the video again. Sorry, let's do that. Hollow back symptom. So I'll put a video about this one day. It's a hollow back, and this is typical of many new shooters in general. But compound shooters tend to be more prone to this. So you see the hollow back. That's telling me the hollow back there. So it's a very prominent arch. So we're gonna have a slight slump to the body, right? So we need to stick the bum in, get this stomach tucked in, and hunch the shoulder forward a bit here. This is a very arch back, very hollow. Good point. Good spot there. Alright, you can put like a banana here, and it'll just sit perfectly in the back. That's a very arched back. So oops, yeah, very arched back. That would cause problems. Movement, we said before, yes. And we were commenting on the draw technique as well, weren't we? So there's something about the draw technique. Yes, so it's a very high draw, true. Most compound shooters prefer something more in line with the target. It's a low to straight, whereas that's a very high draw. Tend to be done by people who don't control their draw weights well. That tends to be the reason why it's done. It's not a stable draw, you're right. It's a very dynamic draw, and for compound you don't want this. You want something a bit more repeatable. This is very high. Now it's safely parallel to the target or the ground, so that's safe. But the drawing technique, this is almost like Kyoto level of height. Yeah, it's a very aggressive draw. It might show a lack of draw weight control. Normally you're going to draw it much more slowly through it, more control in the shot by going straight through. Good point there. I would agree with that. Don't. The peep looks a little low, possibly. Nose contact. I'm not sure if I would say nose contact's that important. Sorry, I'll keep the nose. Let's watch the next shot. Yeah, peep might be a little high. That was a very fast shot. Yeah, man, that's a very fast shot. My goodness, this is on normal speed, right? Yeah, that's a fast shot. My goodness. Compound people, wonder why your groupings are like a little like spread out. This is the reason why. That's a fast shot. We've barely gotten into our anchor point before we let it go. So bang in and shot. That's recurve pace. I mean, honestly, that's fast for a recurve. So you're gonna slow down a lot more, Vin. That is very fast for a compound. In for a recurve. So very high draw. Is the peep too high? That's what I probably say here. So we've got a jaw anchor, looks like it, and the peep is up here. Is the peep too high? Good point there. And moving the head at anchor, as I said before. Yeah. As Morton's saying in chat right now, I would agree with the analysis. That is, we've got to settle in our shot process. We pull to full draw, and we let go almost immediately. And especially with compound, you've got to let your body settle down. So you've got to stabilize. So you've got the arching back, which is causing you to move a lot more, because the upper body's under a lot of tension, but there's nothing holding in place. And we have a lot of movement with the head. So that was a slower shot, but we see a lot of excess movement in the arms as well. So there's a lot of tension. You're too tense in other ways. So that's a very bad collapse there. You can see the rear arm. That's collapsed. That should be a shot reset. So if you come to full draw, watch the elbow. Yeah, that's a lot of extra movement going on there. So the head's moving, the arm's moving. I'm not sure about the anchor point here as well. So there's something not quite right with your head position. It's not working out for you. The peep might be too high, because you're anchoring very low down here. I can't see what your hand is, and you're using a wrist release as well, not a hand release, release aid. So the wrist release will also change things as well. So it's a little tough to get this right with wrist release. So apart from that, the last few shots seem very rushed. That was okay, but these ones were fast. And the reason why this is important to note is it kind of negates the advantages of a compound bow in the first place. So if you don't consolidate and stabilize, you end up flinging arrows in a rough group, and a compound and a recurve shooter who takes their time will beat you. So just be mindful. This isn't going to be good for longer distances as well. Alright, that's probably enough there. So I can't exactly identify what's wrong with the elbow particularly. There are many elements in the shot process which would probably need to be tweaked. The movement, the arching back is very prominent in this particular angle. Maybe check the peep height, but like I said, I'm not the compound expert, so I'm not the person to talk to for compound, but that's probably what I'll contribute there. Yeah, long draw length possibly. That's why I think the elbow being extended is a problem. Sorry, I had the wrong scene there, but I'm just confirming all that. But yeah, yeah, that's the shot sequence. Good. Yeah. Yeah, release aid and draw length must match, yeah. So yeah, quite a few things there. I mean, the thing to note with this is that like what you might think is the cause of the problem might simply be the symptom, and there perhaps might be other parts of the process which contribute to the problem more so than what you think it might be. So that's why we point out all these other small things like the head position, the release aid, the draw length, because all these things can change the outcome of your shot as well as what you feel in the shot process. Yeah, maybe the elbow is hyperextended. Doesn't look hyperextended, but it does look very much extended, more so than what most compound shooters do. Most compound shooters have a slight crook in the arm, so they kind of sit in the bow and stabilize with a kind of angle correctly. The most have a slight crook. Having an arm straight like that might be hyperextended. You can probably see there. That's probably a good example of that. So if your arm's like that, then you're kind of really pushing it. Most compound shooters will kind of stabilize a lot more. Try to get an angle there, camera there. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, slight bend. Anchor, and then they'll do the full draw. Some will shoot straight, but recurves and do more often. But that hyperextension might be true. So it's a nice observation. Anyway, we'll leave it there. It's 12:30. I've got to shoot tomorrow. Got to rest. Got to have some medication, and maybe squeeze some more Assassin's Creed. Thanks for all. Thank you for joining me. I know these have been kind of infrequent, but again, if you want to be part of this, then feel free to submit your own video. Email address is in the description below, as well as my YouTube page. We would do this, I would want to try to do at least once a month, depending on how many we get. I want to do at least 2 or 3 or 4 one sequence. Otherwise, we'll wait for the end of month Q&A for our next live stream. So thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you have a good day or not wherever you are. This is NUSensei, and I will see you next time.